Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back to our naming and writing chemical formulas practice. And we're going to be focusing on naming and writing the chemical formulas for ionic and covalent molecules. And if that's the case, then what we have to be able to do is distinguish between ionic and covalent molecules. So that's going to be probably the thing that will help you the most, is being able to identify that in fact what we have is a metal bonding to a nonmetal when we have an ionic compound, and we have two nonmetals bonding to each other when we have a covalent molecule. So when we have a metal bonding to a nonmetal, we are going to name the name of the metal first, in this case nickel. Recognize if it is a transition metal, and since nickel is in fact a transition metal, we are going to name it with its Roman numeral representing its charge. So if we were to uncrisscross NIS, we would think that nickel had a +1 charge, and we would think that sulfur has a -1 charge. But then we would go check and see that sulfur is actually in group number 16, and we know that group number 16 has a -2 charge because remember, we have a format of +1, +2, transition metals are +2 and more. And then we have +3, and then plus or -4, -3, -2, -1, and 0. So that's our format for our charges. So we would know right away, aha, sulfur is supposed to be -2, so that must mean that nickel, to cancel it out, must also be a +2. And that's where we get the Roman numeral 2 for the nickel 2 sulfide. We add the ending IDE on the end because it is a single nonmetal, and so the ending is added IDE. We would not write just plain old sulfur here. That would be an incorrect way, and we would have forgotten our ending. Now, what about naming covalent molecules? And so for covalent molecules, we have to be able to recognize how many of each we have, and that's going to be based on the subscripts. So let's make sure you know prefixes. 2 is di, 3 is tri, 4 is tetra, 5 is penta, 6 is hexa, 7 is hepta, 8 is octa, 9 is nona, and 10 is deca. Okay, so for this one, I have to call it by its prefix first and then its name of its nonmetal, remembering that we have to change the name of the second nonmetal to the correct IDE ending. And I'm noticing that this one actually has an incorrect name. So let's make sure we name it correctly. I start with first disulfur because I have two sulfurs, but I have 4 oxygens, and this said chloride. So I should have called this tetra oxide. Now, you oftentimes are going to wonder about, well, what do I do? You can either show both vowels together, or you can write it as tetroxide like this and leave the A off. Either way will be a correct way of showing it. Let's look at number 2 and number 12 now. And in number 2 and number 12, we again have a metal, and number 2, a metal with a nonmetal, and we again have a transition metal. So we again have to figure out what is the charge. So in figuring that out, I actually have a polyatomic, which is this polyatomic right here, and that's called sulfate. And I can see that that polyatomic is supposed to have a -2. That must mean that my manganese is a +2, and that's where the Roman numeral 2 came from. So this bit gets called manganese 2 sulfate. And remember that these are ionic. They are made with a metal and a nonmetal. Let's go look at number 12. When I look at number 12, I can see that that is made of some calcium and some chlorine. And so that again is a metal and a nonmetal. This one is ionic as well. So we're going to name the name of the metal, calcium, and the name of the nonmetal, chlor, with an IDE on the end. Okay, so let's look at 3 and 13 now. So for 3 and 13, we have F3Cl4, and I can see that in fact F and Cl are both nonmetals, so I'm going to have trifluorine tetrachloride with an IDE ending. So this was a covalent molecule because I know that it's made of two nonmetals. Now let's go look at nitrogen monoxide or an NO. And so I see, in fact, that those are both nonmetals as well. So I get nitrogen, remembering that according to your notes, we do not put the prefix mono in front of the nonmetal unless it's the second nonmetal. So this becomes nitrogen monoxide. Because we have two nonmetals, this is a covalent bonded molecule. Okay, so I'm going to continue on down the page so you can see some more of the answers. I'm also going to stop here and there and do some more of the naming so that you get the idea of how to do these, but this should get pretty repetitive pretty quickly. So let me see if I can do some erasing here. Let's see. I want to erase all of this stuff because it's not going to travel well. And I'm going to erase all of this stuff here. Okay. All right, I'm going to leave my prefixes on the page so that we can take a look at those. And we're going to scroll down the page here. So let's take a look at a couple of them just to remind you how to do these. Let's go ahead and look at number 10, and then we're going to look at number 16, and then we're going to look at, let's just pick a good one. Let's look at number 6 and make sure we know how to do ones like this. So let's starting with number 6. I can tell number 6 is a ionic compound because this is a metal and this is a non-metal here. And so I have to uncrisscross them to figure things out. And I'm already noticing I have a problem with this one right here. It should not be called sulfide because this is actually a polyatomic. And when I look up this polyatomic, I find out it's -2, so that my iron should be +2, and that's where the iron Roman numeral 2 comes from. But instead of being called sulfide, which would have been only for plain old S, this is not plain old S, this is sulfite here. So iron 2 sulfite should be what this is called. And so then let's go down to number 10. Number 10, we have PCl5, and those are two nonmetals. Both of these are nonmetals, and I have 1 phosphorus and 5 chlorines. So I start with phosphorus, no changes there, penta for 5 chlorines, and IDE for the ending. So this is phosphorus pentachloride. Okay, so now let's go look at question number 16 as well. And so for number 16, I have 2 polyatomics. I can see that because I've got a whole bunch of nonmetals here. So one of them happens to already be in parentheses, and this one is called ammonium. And then this one is called phosphate. So I'm just going to name it using its polyatomic ion names. How do I know they're polyatomics? Because I went and checked just in case to see that they were actually included on the polyatomic list. Okay, so the next one, let's look at number 17. In number 17, I have 2 different types of nonmetals, and I have 2 arsenics and 4 oxygens. So that's where we got diarsenic tetroxide. And remember, you can also write it as tetroxide, just like this. Okay, so let's go ahead then and focus on down to well, what about if we have to do it the opposite way? What if we have to do it as, all right, now we're given the name and we have to write the formula. So we're going to scroll on down to what if we have to, we're given the name and we have to write the formula. So let's pick a few that we can do here. We need to, let's go ahead and pick, I'm going to pick number 23 and number 26 and number 44 and number 41. And then I'm going to go down and try number 49 as well. And while I'm here, let me go ahead and do zinc chlorate number 30 as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at all of these. For copper 2 sulfite, the Roman numeral 2 tells me that I have copper with a +2 charge, and sulfite means I have to go look up the sulfite ion on the on the polyatomic list, and I know that because it has an ending ITE. And I see that my +2 and then my -2 cancel out, and that's why we end up with CuSO3. Number 26, disulfur trioxide. This is as easy as it sounds. That simply means I'm going to write sulfur. Di tells me 2, so my subscript will be a 2. And trioxide tells me I have 3 oxygens. Simple, easy, just like that. All right, so let's go to number 30. Number 30, I need to remember that zinc is a transition metal, but it doesn't get a Roman numeral because it's always a +2 charge. And then I have chlorate, and that means this one wrong. Chlorate, and I didn't want to do that. Chlorate should be written with a polyatomic ClO3 1-, so this instead should be written as ZnClO3 parentheses 2 on the outside, so that should be zinc chlorate. Then I'm going to go on to number 41. I have ammonium chloride, and I need to find the polyatomic for ammonium, which is NH4 + 1, and chlorine, which is a -1, and therefore I get NH4Cl as the +1 and -1 cancel each other out. Then I have trisulfur tetroxide, and the tri tells me I have 3 sulfurs, and the tetra tells me I have 4 oxygens, so I have S3O4, with the 3 and the 4 being in the subscript format. And finally, I have aluminum carbonate. And so this is a metal with a nonmetal polyatomic. So I'm going to write down their ions because this is an ionic compound. So I have Al +3 and I have CO3 -2. And the CO3 is a polyatomic. I'll put it in parentheses. Then I will crisscross my charges and I get Al2CO3. Okay. So one more thing, let's go ahead and try a couple more on the following page, and then we will have gone over pretty much all of the pieces. If I've made any other mistakes with my answers, I apologize. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Any more down here? Okay, so let's take a look at a few more naming to formulas sort of format, and I'm going to do number 32, and then I'm going to do number 35, and then I'm going to do number 52, and I'm going to do number 56. Okay, so iron 2 acetate means that I am going to have Fe2 plus, and it's going to be combining with the acetate ion, which is C2H3O2 with a 1-. Crisscrossing my charges, I get Fe, parentheses C2H3O2, close parentheses 2. Number 35, tin 4 tells me I have tin with a +4 charge, and chloride has a -1 charge. Crisscrossing, I do get SnCl4. Then I have aluminum nitride, okay? And in this case, the way this is written, this is telling me that it is ionic, so I'm going to use my aluminum +3 and my nitrogen -3. Interesting. Aluminum, boy, that is completely messed up. So Al +3 and -3. I don't have any other information other than aluminum nitride. My charges will cancel each other out. I am left with AlN. Boy, I'm glad I found that one. That would have been a problem for everybody. All right. Then we go to tetraiodine trisulfide. This is a nonmetal. This is a nonmetal. Tetra tells me 4. Tri tells me 3. I have I4S3. So this is covalent. This is ionic. This is ionic. This one's ionic. And then number 56, phosphorus pentachloride. There is my nonmetal and a nonmetal, so I'm going to name it using my prefixes. No prefix in front of phosphorus means there's a 1 here. So penta tells me there are 5 chlorines, so I end up with PCl5. Any other questions? Please make sure that you are messaging me so that I can help you with those. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.